Now that we have reached the end of 2019, I can claim this was an insane year for gamers, especially for me as a PC gamer. I think the average quality and also the quantity of the releases was just so high. At the same time, only few games really stood out, at least in the AAA and Friends section, so it felt a bit like there were not many good Game of the Year contenders, but if you look at the release list, it's really full of good games. Of course, there are also some disappointments like Anthem, but that felt more like the exception. Who follows my stream for some time knows that Soulcalibur VI was a huge time sink this year for me, but it was released October 2018, so it does not count. Also, I'm not happy with Season 2 because it introduced some really annoying bugs, but I wanted to mention it anyway. In June 2019, a game released that I'm also currently playing on stream and enjoy a lot so far. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I haven't completed it yet, but after playing it for over 20 hours that I really enjoyed so far, I would be surprised if I suddenly would start disliking the game. There was one short section that was a bit annoying. It got better when I revisited it with more abilities though, but the rest was a blast. It's pretty old school, has good movement options, a ton of spells, weapons and abilities, much to explore. The game even manages to surprise you after 20 hours. The Metroidvania typical backtracking so far was far less tedious than, for example, in the endgame of Blasphemous, which I overall liked too. There's a long list of things Bloodstained does well. The spells feel so impactful and some can be used very strategically. Sometimes you struggle with a boss, but then you find a good strategy, the right spells to use, and it suddenly almost trivializes the fight in a good way. When your strategy is working out, it feels really rewarding, and your character Miriam extremely powerful, while she powers through the levels like a train, destroying everything just with her sheer presence. I love options in combat, and this game has a lot of them. It has a surprising amount of mechanics. I know this sounds a bit negative, but I really like games with a lot of mechanics that also are in some areas more complicated than probably needed. I was also surprised about the humor and all the little references in the game, and I probably didn't get half of them. The music is also fantastic and the game plays well on PC. I've heard that the Switch port has some problems on the technical side, so be warned, but on PC it runs really smooth so far. And with all this said, Koji Igarashi manages to deliver another great Castlevania game again. It just has a slightly different name. Bloodstained, but also the next two games are really close contenders for Game of the Year for me. Let's start with Anno 1800. I played it only in private and didn't make a review, but I enjoyed it tremendously, and it has become one of my favorite Anno titles of the whole series. For those who don't know what it is, it's a relaxing business management city builder game. You manage islands and establish cities that develop further. You unlock more technology and you need to fulfill the increasing needs of your population and produce goods and so on. The production chains are really complex later on. It has a great soundtrack, it's gorgeous looking, has the typical Anno atmosphere and is still really relaxing except when you fight a war. I love games like Roller Coaster Tycoon. They offer something creative and you can see how what you build has an effect, which feels rewarding. In Anno, you see the success of what you have planned and how it helps you to progress in the game. When your first ship of the line is ready and you obliterate those pesky little pirate ships attacking your trading ships, it feels really satisfying and looks cool too. Beyond that, we have many little additions. The new blueprint mode is really convenient. With a secret key combination, you can also walk in first person through your streets to see what you have built and how your city feels alive. The game also offers enough content for countless hours. Multiplayer runs stable and you can at this point even play co-op with friends, so multiple people people control the same player or faction, but you can also play different factions and peacefully work together, play against AI opponents or fight each other. It has everything I could wish for. Still, I like Anno 1404 a bit more, and 1602, the first one, will always have a special place in my heart, but 1800 is really close. The only problem, it's time consuming and I don't have enough time to play it extensively. It was also very close to be my game of the year. My third Game of the Year contender was the Resident Evil 2 remake. I played the original on PlayStation 1 and they managed to create a modern game that looks, feels and plays like I distantly remember the original from over 20 years ago, which is obviously not true. The controls were horrible back then, like you are moving a tank, which was quite common in horror games of that time. It also does not have those locked camera angles, which added a lot to the atmosphere of the original, but technology and the game design have advanced so much that you don't really notice it in the remake. The original Resident Evil 2 is just a classic. It already proved that it's a really good game. However, translating a game from over 20 years ago into a modern game without losing the core essence is really difficult, and they nailed it. The remake proved the quality of the original and its concept one more time, and with its atmosphere, visuals, animations, gameplay and level design, they reforged the original to one of the best games of 2019. The beginning of the game feels really intense with its amazing sound design and visuals that draw you into the terrible situation of Raccoon City. Always feeling like running out of ammunition increases this feeling. You have to be careful moving through the areas, always considering how you can avoid shooting and just running past the zombies. The game also has some surprises prepared to pressure you further while you are finding a way to escape. Really well done. I was excited for Resident Evil 2, but I did not expect it to be this good. It's not just nostalgia, but in my opinion, a really good game, close being my game of the year. Now, before we come to the final game, there are some honorable mentions. Sunless Skies came out in January and I hadn't the time to play through it yet, just played an hour. I'm pretty sure it had the potential of becoming at least a contender for my game of the year. So far, I see how it improved over Sunless Seas, which I loved and I still think is one of the best written games ever made. The problem of the predecessor was its grindy gameplay, but Sunless Skies seems to solve this a bit, and it also makes combat more interesting. The game's world took some inspiration from Lovecraft, but in my opinion finds its own unique spin. Many people roll their eyes when they hear about yet another Lovecraft-inspired game, but I think Sunless Seas and also Sunless Skies are really special in that regard. They have a really good writing that builds this unique atmosphere, and they bring your mind to places and stories that feel very unique in the gaming cosmos. A lot of the game is text-based, but the texts are written so well, it's like reading a good book. The drawn artworks the game shows with the text only help to channel your fantasy into a certain direction, and if you allow it, you are drawn into a very weird and strange journey. It's not a game for everyone, but it was overlooked a lot this year, and maybe some of you find this recommendation interesting, because I would definitely recommend it. It's on sale right now on Steam and GOG. Another potentially overlooked gem is a puzzle game called Baba Is You, which is really creative. You can move things around to solve levels, which does not sound spectacular, but it also allows you to move around the rules of the level itself that are also movable objects in it. So to solve a puzzle, you have to change the rules of it, which is a very smart idea and unique game design. If you like games like these, check it out. It's also in the winter sale on Steam right now. And in case you wonder, I had no time to play Disco Elysium yet, but it's on my list of games to play. But let us talk about my game of the year 2019 and why I think it's a weird choice. I made a review of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice this year, so you know my opinion on that game. For me, it was my disappointment of the year, even though I still see a good game with a few flaws in it. It was just not for me because it sacrificed elements that are most important to me when it comes to games, but of course that is different for other people. A game that in contrast surprised me greatly this year was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I expected so much out of Sekiro, but found its combat not that interesting after some time. I expected absolutely nothing out of EA's new Star Wars game and got a really solid Star Wars game, even though I think Respawn is a competent developer. And it also has many little problems. It's by no means a perfect game and lacks polish for a AAA title. What is strange, Sekiro in contrast plays far smoother, is more consistent in its design and also has fewer little bugs. It's in many areas the superior game, but I still liked Fallen Order more because I did not expect it to be this good and fun. I thought a lot over the last few weeks why I see those games so differently. When I looked at Sekiro's core design the first time with, for example, new moves to unlock, I expected it to be something like a spectacle fighter. But we find the weird design decision that you can only select one new combat art at a time. You unlock them in your skill trees. There are passive skills and active skills, which have to be selected and are essentially new attacks called combat arts. However, I can go into the menu and change the selected combat art anytime I want, even mid-combat. Why is this possible? Was this the intention or did they forget to lock the option in combat? Why do you design a fast-paced real-time action game with combat focus and implement your combat arts like that? In my opinion, it makes no sense. Imagine you fight this tough boss in Sekiro and then notice you could really make use of this other combat art against him in certain situations too. So you wait until the situation occurs, then you pause the game, go into the menu, fiddle with the UI, select the other combat art, unpause the game, use it. Then you pause again, fiddle with the menu, select the combat art you had before because you want to use it too, unpause the game and continue, and you would have to repeat this every time. Who would play Sekiro like this? Correct, nobody does, and that's why this part of the game feels not well designed and not fun. I often hesitate with saying something is bad, but my definition of bad in games or films and so on is when an element of a story, a character, a design, a game mechanic, etc. clearly contradicts the creator's intention indicated in the work itself. It's bad. And I think this is the case here. It contradicts the fast-paced combat design philosophy that is clearly existent in the game, which does not ruin the game in total but feels really off and, in my opinion, reduced the illusion of choice and is also not fun. In Jedi Fallen Order, I have access to all the moves I unlock all the time. My combat arts become part of my moveset, like it would be in a spectacle fighter. In Bloodstained, I can even deactivate already unlocked abilities again. Sekiro decided against this design and sacrificed, in my opinion, a lot of potential here. Not that most of the active combat arts of Sekiro are that interesting or useful to begin with. Fallen Order, in contrast, manages to find a good balance here. They also manage to make the offensive part of the game fun and a focus, while in Sekiro you play a defense-focused rhythm game against most tougher enemies, and when you time every parry, or deflect as it's called in the game, perfectly, you get to insta-kill your enemy or take one of his HP bars away when the enemy's posture bar is filled to max. In theory, attacking an enemy is often not even necessary in Sekiro. Of course, if an enemy loses some health, he regenerates posture slower, but usually relatively few hits are needed for this when you are good at deflecting. The game even has different qualities of deflecting an attack. Okay, good, perfect, like hitting notes in a rhythm game. And here was another problem for me. Deflecting is just the best answer 90% of the time, and the game rewards you heavily for using it. The offensive part suffers greatly from this and feels a bit underdeveloped in contrast. With this, I felt the combat was lacking options. This might be true for Souls 2 to some degree, but there I never noticed it this much. It made a better job of creating the illusion of choice, and you deciding what option to use having impact and feeling rewarding. Jedi Fallen Order has by no means a perfect combat system, but in my opinion it finds a very pleasant balance between offense, defense, options and difficulty, at least on the highest difficulty setting. Some options I almost never used, like holding the attack button to switch between single and dual blade, but I laughed that this option existed and I thought about how to make use of it. There was the move where you get a delayed attack, which I used a lot and killed many of the easier enemies with, because it was a perfect counter for the attack timing. I thought about this, used it and saw the success in it, which felt rewarding. I can see how they could improve this further in the next iteration, and I'm really looking forward to it. I also think that force powers felt really powerful in Fallen Order, including the heavy attack. The force bar was also empty very fast, so you had to think when to use force powers until you unlock a certain skill. I also loved this dodge move. Of course, you could argue this is also just a rhythm game, but it's optional and a high-risk, high-reward skill. It's another tool in my toolbox, not the mechanic the game evolves around. In addition, I like the characters in Fallen Order.
Calico! You were talking in your sleep. Weirdo.
Found the story decent, exploration was fun, even though the rewards were too often very boring, and it felt like an adventure in the Star Wars universe I loved so much as a child. After the late Lucas era, and especially the terrible Disney era, Jedi Fallen Order let me feel an excitement for Star Wars again I haven't felt in over a decade. I even streamed out of schedule just so I could continue playing it again. With this, the flawed Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, with invisible walls, clipping problems, weird animations and animation transitions, has become my game of the year 2019, and I see myself even playing through it again. I remember how it was announced, in a weird interview with the CEO of Respawn sitting in the crowd, no trailer, no footage, just the name and in which Star Wars era it plays. EA also announced to focus more on multiplayer games and was heavily criticized for their toxic implementation of microtransactions over the years, and rightfully so. It felt like they were not the largest fans of the single-player Star Wars game themselves. My expectations were accordingly very low, even though I liked what Respawn did in the past. But it turned out to be a really solid Star Wars game with no microtransactions, like an anomaly inside of Electronic Arts. I hope the game is a huge success and EA got the message. We want more fun single-player games like this. Thank you for watching. It was a ton of fun making a video about games again, but I had to record a lot of footage for this. I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe found it useful. Let me know what your game or games of the year 2019 were. As always, if you enjoyed the video and want to support my channel, feel free to press the like button, leave a comment or recommend me further. I also have a Discord server and stream on Twitch 2 times a week as a small side project. Also, there are playlists in the description and so on. Next videos will be, at least that is what I plan, a Lord of the Rings related lore video, maybe another one of the films and books differences series, and of course my games of the decade video. I cut out enough content from this video to even make another game related video, but we will see what is next. I wish you all a great year 2020. Again, thank you for watching and goodbye.